Hi, everybody. It's me, Whimsy. I thought I'd come on. I'm going to go ahead and do a recorded video for people who don't like the longer versions. I really enjoyed last Sunday. We had quite a long Sunday brunch. The remote viewing went on for a lot longer than I'd wanted. I wanted to get through everything in 15 to 20 minutes. Unfortunately, when I had done the remote viewing, it took about 2.5 hours. Trying to reduce that to 20 minutes can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. All right, so today we're going to be doing a couple remote viewings, and we're going to be also doing a couple tarot card blitzes that I find really interesting. So before we get started, I just want to thank everybody for checking out my channel. If you can go ahead and click the like button, I would appreciate it. Be sure and share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff so that you can get notified about future updates. Okay, so the first remote viewing that I focused on, and this was a request, had to do with President Xi of China and concerns about China developing new trade routes in Africa. So this is something that we don't really talk a lot about. We certainly didn't talk a lot about it under the Trump administration, this idea that we have competing trade routes and that we're in trade wars, etc. But I think the more that I do this type of remote viewing, I'm learning a lot of stuff that I wouldn't normally find out on the news about companies competing for trade, buy my products instead of his products. And I was amazed at how much about war has to do really with control of trade and control of prices. And that brings us to the conversation about China, fears about China creating future trade routes, etc. in South Africa, etc. So when I went in and Googled it, I found out that China has in fact been creating new trade routes. They've built roads, trains, etc. in several African countries, including it looks like Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, parts of Egypt. They're also looking at parts of the Congo. Now, it's interesting because if you look at the previous remote viewing that I did, when I had gone in to look at the Kushner contracts, etc., over the Middle East, they were trying to unify the Middle East, unify trade, control trade, and probably were going to be developing some kind of Middle East coin in order to create a strong, solid, united Middle East. Now, it was interesting to go into the energy of China because from the perspective of China, they're being blocked. And this goes back to the old ideas of the Silk Road, where Arab countries, the Arab Peninsula, etc., they would attempt to block trade coming out of certain areas and then charge tariffs, etc., so that they could make profits off of trade that was coming out of China, trade that was coming out of Africa, etc. And so that is basically where we find ourselves today, with trade and infrastructure being blocked in Africa in order to control profits, etc. And much of that is being spearheaded by the wealthy Gulf states. And so what it looks like when you go into the energy is that President Xi is attempting to create new trade routes so that he can do business with Africa and bypass some of the blockades, etc., that are coming from the Middle East. So that's the war. That's the political war that's happening between China, the United States, and our allies in the Middle East that are attempting to unify. On the one hand, they say anti-global, anti-global. But when you look at the kinds of deals that they're making in the Middle East with Kushner, it was all about globalization, uniting the Middle East in order to be a strong force against these Chinese trade routes. Now, when you go into the actual trade routes themselves, you can also see where potentially you could be seeing more war, like the Arab Gulf area. Yemen could become a problem because Yemen is a way of getting into Saudi Arabia, etc. So it doesn't surprise me that weapons, trade, pirates, etc., are beginning to create an unstable situation there. So if you're on the side of the wealthy Gulf states and you want to continue to build these strong embargoes, blocking these trade routes, taking money for yourself, etc., what you have to do is you have to demonize the Chinese and say that they're going to make African slaves, etc. But the truth of the matter is, historically, it was actually the Arab countries going into Africa that were doing that. So objectively looking at the energy as best as I can, it does look like there are some cultural conflicts. For example, one of the people that I remote viewed was President Xi, and allegations that workers were being exploited, etc. And it was an interesting cultural conversation energetically with Xi, in the sense that there is an idea he expressed to me that is very Chinese, that people in other countries simply don't adopt. And one of the ideas he was talking about is this idea of giving your life so that you can be part of something that's greater, that will live on long after you are gone. And he gave the example of the Wall of China and how many people it took in order to build a structure like the Wall of China. But the Wall of China has lived on for, such a long time because it was built so solid. And so the argument that she was making was that from a Chinese perspective, a traditional Chinese perspective, that is precisely what you do. You're willing to, give your life and work in the rice fields 16 hours a day because you want something better for your descendants. And so he was saying that from a cultural perspective, it's very hard to translate that into business in the United States. American workers want to be paid a decent salary. They want to go home at 5 o'clock and be with their kids. And he was just saying that what is perceived of as exploitation in the West is perceived of differently in China, that many Chinese people grew up with a belief system that we all have to sacrifice. We all have to tighten our belts and give of our lives, and so that our descendants, for the greatness of the nation. And it was just interesting to be in that energy and realize that we in the West just don't think that way. So expect to see more struggles, more tension between China and the United Gulf states, Israel, etc., as they attempt to compete and block these new trade routes. The other thing that was kind of interesting about China is all these train systems that they're building. Of course, Libya and Russia were also working out trade deals. So it does create a kind of tense situation. On the one hand, when I placed myself in the position of being part of the new Middle East, the new coin, etc., I felt really positive. But then when I put myself in the shoes of the Chinese, Africa, the building of new infrastructures, new trade routes, I could see that this is probably going to build towards more stress and more tension in the area as the years go by. All right, so the next remote we're talking about has to do with the Republican Party, the future of the Republican Party, and questions that I had about whether or not the Republican Party literally was going to have to break itself up in order to continue on. And I think that that's definitely where we're headed. It goes back to the remote view we did a couple of days ago, where we talked about the fact that it looks like the Republican Party was infiltrated by extremists that potentially used laptops, etc., in order to choreograph crimes against the federal government. So expect to see several, I don't know how much is going to be made public, but several Republican headquarters, resources, etc., specifically in remote areas. The ties between the Republican Party, the money of the Republican Party, and how it could have potentially been infiltrated. And the concern here is that this infiltration involves foreign countries. This is a problem with our political parties in general, not just with the Republicans. The Democrats as well have to deal with spies, people getting into their headquarters, people stealing laptops, getting access to laptops, etc. It's just that the extent to which this has happened in the GOP is something that's going to become painfully obvious probably in the next 2 to 3 months as more of this investigation becomes public. All right, so there are 3 people I'm going to be looking at today. I want to look at the future of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Joe Manchin, and was that it? Was I only doing, I thought I was doing 3. All right, well, I guess I'm gonna, actually, I'm doing the Green Future Earth. The reason why I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Green Future Earth and throw one more cards on it was because the Democrats had talked. It's so cool that I was able to deliver those remotes a couple weeks and months prior to Biden coming out and saying that that's exactly where they're headed. So Schumer has said that they're going to phase out the old gas engines, et cetera, by 2030. So that's 9 years from now. So I got it right. Yeah. And it looks like they are going to be cleaning up the air, and they're concerned about air quality, asthma, et cetera, particularly in poor areas, urban areas, et cetera. So we're going to see what happens there. We're going to go ahead. We're going to do the empath prayer, and then I'm going to start with the Green Earth, and then we'll move on to the future of the Republican Party, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then I also want to just look at Joe Manchin, if he's going to be a problem going forward with these new green deals that are going forward. All right. I want to call on white light protection for myself and my viewers as I ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records. We call on our spirit guides and good angels to be with us. Give us the clarity and the wisdom that is needed to empower all of us on our journeys to make the best decisions for ourselves, our families, for the planet, for the people we love, but also to help those we have strife with. And together we say, Amen. Amen. Yes, Neil, I will raise that for you. Come here. There you go. She wanted it lifted. Let us look, my children. Let us see the future of the green earth. So it's kind of fun when I do remote viewings. The first time I had a vision of what the planet was going to look like a couple hundred years from now, I thought I was like hallucinating. It was like you went through these tube structures. It was like elevators that go at like hundreds of miles per hour that take you up to these cities and towns. Some of them rotate over the globe. So if you buy a condo that rotates, you literally get to have a world tour. You get to see the world once a year because it rotates over. And then if it docks, say in Paris, for hovers over Paris, and then they connect that tube system that Richard Branson is developing, you would just be able to tour and shop and visit Paris until it ends the dock and then rotates to another station. And this is like possibly going to happen in our lifetime. It's just absolutely amazing. And I loved the remote viewing we did of Elon Musk, where he said, you're going to smell the air is going to be different in 5 years. And to hear Senator Schumer say, that's precisely what we're going to do. It was just like, oh my gosh. We saved ourselves. We are saving ourselves. We are creating a beautiful world for ourselves. And we really are getting it. And I'm just so proud of everybody that's becoming a part of creating this amazing future world. All right, so the green future, it's the business and the sun coming out. I think that people are very, very enthusiastic and very, very excited because they understand, they're starting to get, oh, you feed the ecosystem and then you become richer because now you have unlimited resources because you keep feeding the resource. So there is this awakening or awareness. I like the karma card. Sun is like the light bulb coming out. It's like an awareness. The sun shines. It's a brightness. It's a positive card. It's the bright side. And then Queen of Pentacles can be the hidden queen, but it's the base of the matter. It's the business card. What is over us? Negotiations. We are negotiating the new Green Deal. We're negotiating Temperance is also to balance. So we are going to have to deal with a lot of the concerns by conservatives about spending, etc. And it also means devastation of some companies that simply cannot sustain themselves going forward. And unfortunately, we have a 10 of swords. Some companies are really going belly up, and that includes workers losing jobs. So that's a real concern going forward. Grief. It could be that there's a lag time between some companies, some company towns that are producing things like oil or things that are simply no longer a viable product. They go under. You can see a lot of grief here. It's going to be difficult. These are the growing pains we had talked about. We talked about the collapsing economy. People said, well, when's it going to be here? If you're doing great, I'm happy for you. But 30-something% of Americans don't have jobs. We now have record numbers of people that can't pay their mortgage. We're losing about 4,000 people a day to this virus. We're at over 420,000 dead, with a calculated dead of 500K by the end of February. And by the end of March, they're concerned that it could be as high as 350 because we're having a problem with the rollout. So it's collapsing around us. If you're doing great, then you did everything you were supposed to do. You hunkered down, you kept yourself enough liquid so that if you have to pay your rent, mortgage, etc., for the next 6 months or whatever, you've done that. So if you've done all that and you're feeling fine, congratulations, you got about your business. This isn't so hard for me. Don't brag, because a lot of people are not as lucky as you. Okay, so again, light bulb information coming out. This is again the Greene economy. You can see here information, knowledge coming in, secrets being revealed. The situation we're coming out of is an inverted moon card. This is the 5th house. So real confusion. This is the card that also can be gaslighting, lunatic energy, just real possibly misinformation. And then the near future, entering into the battle. We have the 5 of swords straight up can be leaving a battle you can't win, but we can see a battle is starting to get set between Republicans and Democrats. And it's important for us to communicate that some of these concerns are really legitimate. This could lead to even more unemployment in some sectors, in some areas, if we don't do this transition properly. And so those are some of the concerns, and rightly so, of some of the Republicans. They don't want to work with one another. You can see a 6 of cups. There's inverted, which can be cooperation, peace, returning back to civility, giving the bouquet. Problems. The problem is also to some extent because I think of the 7th house as the Democrats, since they hold the majority, this real intolerance to even negotiate. But I do think the unemployment concerns in those communities and the transition is something legitimately to be concerned about. Where the Republicans are in relationship to this, the trickster, inverted magician, hiding documents. Some of the Republican Party does not want a forensic on the Republican Party, which is inevitably going to happen because the feds are going in. The feds are going in over the next 2 to 3 months. And that means that if you were a Republican who somehow got conned into believing that sedition was a good idea, and you're trying to hide just how much you knew or how much you were involved, that's a problem. You can see here the trickster card in the 8th house, which I'm seeing as the GOP, the 10 of swords coming in, also economic concerns among their constituents, hopes and fears, doing the work, carrying the load. And then the final outcome for the Green Deal is the ethos. We will share the ethos. It is going to be difficult to turn this around. We can't assume based on these cards, with this being a crossing card, that it's going to, that people who are already working at a job, say in a chicken processing plant or something like that, to tell them that in 5 years, we're just not going to be eating meat like that anymore because we now know how to ferment the cells to produce chicken breast without killing a chicken. So it really serves no purpose. That's going to be difficult, particularly if you're thinking about an industry that's say hiring hundreds and thousands of people, but it's just too dangerous. There's too many health concerns. transition to the new green way of producing animal products, etc., is the ethos. But again, expect delays, difficulties, struggles, conflicts, deception from the GOP, even attempts by the GOP to sabotage potentially the new economy. Unfortunately, I'm seeing additional attacks by the Republicans against the Democrats to such an extent. This is the 8th House opposition. They don't want to deal with us. Heartbreak. We're going to just have to plow through and establish, try and be sensitive to the needs of communities that are struggling right now. But unfortunately, we're going to have to bypass the Republicans, at least to start, because of this. And we have to be very careful, because if we do it in a way that leads to more poverty and unemployment in those areas, it could really hurt us in 2024. Okay, so that was the new green economy. The next one we're going to be doing is we're taking a look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. The reason why I wanted to throw on her is because she may be one of the people, if I'm assuming she's under criminal investigation, one of the people who they want to see her laptop and see what she was doing with at the GOP, using possibly her and her friends using GOP resources. So let's go ahead now, and we're going to go ahead and check Marjorie Taylor Greene's future. She's Republican, and she's one of the Trumpsters. She talked about assassinating Democrats. Yeah. One of the people that I believe AOC is concerned about. All right, what's going on with her? She has strife because she's involved in something. Look at that. This is like addiction, drug addiction, a codependent relationship, involved in a sick relationship she can't get out of. That, by the way, is her karma card. In plainer words, she is so stuck on this guy and Trumpism that it's looking like a cult of addiction. This is almost like a heroin addiction. And you can see the strife card. This is somebody who doesn't have the mental health or well-being to break up with this person. Strife, addiction, codependency. This is the person that will flee in order to flee a halfway house or recovery in order to get the heroin. It's that bad. Strife, addiction. New beginning. She's talking about a new beginning for herself and a transformation or a change. She may feel that she could do more to advance her belief systems by not being a rep, because there's transformation over her job. She thinks she's in a position of power, like she's a true believer. I mean, she really, people with this type of placement may have no doubts. It's like the people who have faith and no doubts. An example would be the people who bombed the trades, the Twin Towers during 9/11. They had no doubt. They knew that they were right. They knew they were going to go straight to heaven. So that kind of faith is actually considered a mental health problem. There's something called a healthy doubt, that it's important to have healthy doubt. But you can see her, she's doing the work. She thinks, look at this, world, international dealings. And then she's coming out of, there's some kind of an exposure with her. She feels she got herself in this situation. Her immediate environment, she has tied herself in knots. Her opposition, which would be the Democrats, creating partnerships with people that want to move forward to create the new world, right? The two wands. The hope and the fear for her that she will fail. Inverted Six of Wands. And then the final outcome for her, she gets her wish looking abroad. The clarification for her, look at this. This is her environment, Moon, put herself in a situation she can't get out of, an addiction that she refuses to let go of, leading to strife. We're making money. We're doing deals with Republicans, et cetera, that want to work with us. You can see the Two of Wands, and there's the green economy. This is my green economy card. The hope and the fear for her, again, it's all about failure and victory. Look at that. This is victory in battle inverted with a victory card there. Her final outcome is keeping secrets, hiding dots. She's the person that would hide the guns, hide the documents in her home, hide out of a distorted sense of loyalty. In plainer words, this is someone who will not be cooperating with any kind of an investigation. She's very confused, even to the point of being delusional. And there is a death card over her with a page of wands as a new beginning. She could be expelled, but she's so far gone in her delusion, I don't even know if she would entirely be consciously aware of why or that she has a problem. It's quite a shocking card chart to go into. But with that transformation happening, new beginnings, etc., I would not be surprised if she was removed eventually. Now, the card that came over that was a wand card. 10 of new beginning space. She could be out of there possibly or pushed to leave for, by spring of 2021. Okay, so the next person we're looking at is Joe Manchin. He has coal country. He's concerned about his constituents. He's concerned about shutting things down before there's a transition team that can give what. These are legitimate concerns. So let's see about how we can make sure people in Joe Manchin's districts and 4 areas have jobs. So that's the main concern. If we can show him that we can transition without people losing income, that would probably go a long way with Joe Manchin. But let's take a look. It's fun sometimes to tape them. Okay, where Joe Manchin is in relationship to this, he's being wooed. You can see the wooers card. Come on, come away with me. We're trying to woo him. He is not happy about being in the middle of this. He sees the argument. He agrees with people about the green economy. Look at the stress he's under. It's not that. It's about the fact that if you shut everything down and it's going to take 2-3 years to set something up, you're going to put these people on welfare for 3 years? They don't want to be on welfare for 3 years. They want to work. You see, he's between a rock and a hard place. I get where he's coming. He's not saying he likes the economy. He's saying these people need to work now. I'm going to turn my heat on off. Okay, so yeah, the death and transformation of and healing. They're trying to help him. Look, I don't think Manchin is coming from a bad place. I think this has to do with transformation and changes in the economy. I think this has to do, yes, the people that are invested, but also the workers themselves. What is above? Yeah, it has to do with the transition. He's concerned about the transition. What sits, he is talking to both sides. Lover sits in his 3rd house. His past placement, victorious. He wants good things for his state. He wants good things for, he's worried that if he trusts them, it's going to be a poor decision. He's got an inverted judgment card here. And look at his 4th house, 2 of swords. He's scared to do anything. Look at the stress he's under. Poverty. It's about the poverty and the people that own the old economy that funded Joe Manchin's career also. It's losing sponsors with poverty. We get our wish, his hope and his fear. It's about the economy. Queen of Swords. So is resolved with the past. Look at that. We're going to have to give him financial incentive. There it is, Ace of Pentacles. We will give Manchin financial incentive. Here it is, the business. That's our 8th house, the Democrats, the opposition, the money comes in, the hope and fear. He's gonna, but I'll tell you something, Manchin will pay for this because he's dealing with psychopathy, people in positions of power, potentially abusive. So in defense of Manchin, he's got some people he's working with that are could potentially make his life quite difficult. He's between a rock and a hard place. But he will eventually side with the Democrats, but they're going to have to prove themselves. They're going to have to prove that this is not going to harm the existing economies while they transition over. All right, so that is today's remote viewing, today's card readings, etc. If you're still trying to get in for a reading with me, you can go to tarotwithwhimsy.com, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.